Hello, and thank you once again for joining me on another worm episode. For the past few weeks, I have been taking 4 out of my 5 bins to the harvesting stage. And basically, I've been feeding these minimally and just trying to dry out the castings as much as possible. As such, for the past week or so, there really hasn't been much to update on this bin. The worms are really working through the cardboard that I added into these particular bins. The colony itself, I do find worms everywhere I put my hands, so they're really getting through and breaking it down. The most that I'm seeing in all of the bins right now that I am taking to harvest is the larger seeds, which don't seem to get broken down at all in the bin. So, for 4 out of the 5 bins, 2 being my regular tote, 1 being the Vermibag tote and the Vermibag mini, it's really no different from what I did to it last week, giving it a smaller portion of food and then just setting it up for the next week. Now, with my bins, I am not brave enough to starve the bins. And what that means, if you're unfamiliar, is that there are other channels and people who make videos who will not feed their bins for a couple of weeks prior to harvesting the bins. And I've seen different videos where they'll go sometimes months as an experiment. I'm not brave enough to do something like that simply because I've experienced whole colony collapses with my worms. So what I intend to do is just give them smaller and smaller feedings as it gets closer to the time where I'm going to harvest. And then hopefully putting less food in will encourage them to break down. Even though I am still putting fresh food into all of the bins, I do notice that the cardboard has been broken down pretty quickly in all of the bins that are getting ready. So I think what I'm going to do is at the end of the month, so 2 more weeks, I'm going to begin to do the harvest of the bins. My plan at this point is to do the horizontal migration on both of my regular totes. For the Vermibag tote, which you can see kind of in the upper left hand corner, there was a piece of tape on this bag, and I noticed that another hole had opened up on this bag. I think I've been using the Vermibag totes now for about 2 years, and that might be just user issue. For the most part, the other bag doesn't have any holes in it at all. So I need to do a baiting process on the regular or the Vermibag tote. For this Vermibag tote, though, I am not going to be harvesting it. I am still trying to grow the colony, and I'm going to give it 1 more week before I completely mix the material all together. I've given it about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at this point, with just the cardboard area but not being disturbed. And because I plan on combining these next week, I'm going to feed both sides to make sure that the worms are in both of the areas. So the feeding is still going to be small, not giving this a large feeding at all. And then once I do the feeding on both sides for this week, I'm just going to cover this up, and then next week I'll probably mix it together and then just treat it as a bin and feed it as I see fit. But I do want to make sure that the newspaper on top is water. So I recognize in this bin it is wet because I do keep adding water, but I don't want that newspaper on top to dry out. My last and final bin, which is also the 4th bin that's going to be taken to harvest, is the Vermibag mini. Now, as far as feeding this bin, there's no real changes in what I do since this is a flow-through system, and I'm not going to be disturbing all of the castings. I'm just going to be harvesting from the bottom. But as always, I do have that issue with the crunchy sides. Now, as an afterthought, I'm wondering what the castings are going to look like at the bottom, because I am adding this material and I'm unsure if it's actually fully drying out or if the water is soaking into the castings at the bottom. So I'll have my answer to that in a couple of weeks, and I really hope I don't have muddy castings at the bottom. But after this gets all set up for the next week, that completes this update for all of my bins. It was a quick one, but I do thank you so much if you've gotten to the end with me. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And as always, thank you so much for watching.